One handshake, $44 million, and a smile that promised death. Tommy Norris didn't just sign a deal, he signed away his freedom. The dust hadn't even settled after that season 2 finale, and already the ground under West Texas feels unstable. Not because of earthquakes or drilling mishaps, but because Tommy Norris crossed a line you don't uncross. When he stared down Danny Galino and accepted cartel money, this stopped being an oil story. This became a survival story. You could see it in Tommy's eyes. Not fear exactly. Calculation. The look of a man who knows he just stepped into something that doesn't end with a clean exit. People keep calling it an investment, but let's be honest. Cartels don't invest, they own. And now, whether Tommy wants to admit it or not, Galino owns a piece of his soul. CTT, oil exploration, and cattle was supposed to be a fresh start. Family run, independent, no suits breathing down their necks, no corporate leash, just Tommy, Cooper, and TL trying to carve out their own future in a ruthless oil game. Sounds noble, right? Except that future was funded by a man who kills his own people to prove a point. Galino didn't just hand over money, he handed over a warning. Lose this, cross me, disappoint me, and I'll take the thing you love most. That wasn't dialogue, that was a promise, and promises like that don't fade with time. They get collected. What makes this even darker is how calm Galino was. No shouting, no threats screamed across the table, just that smooth voice and that smile that never touched his eyes. That's the terrifying part. Tommy has dealt with corporate sharks, ruthless landmen, and oil tycoons who would ruin lives over a lease. But cartel power is different. You can't out-negotiate it. You can't bury it in paperwork. Once you're in, you're always being watched. Every well you drill, every dollar you earn, every move your family makes. And now, every success CTT has only tightens the chain around Tommy's neck. Tommy thinks he's still in control. You can hear it in the way he talks. He believes he can play the long game, keep Galino close but not too close, give him profits without giving him power. But that's the oldest lie in the book. Cartel money doesn't stay in the background. It creeps forward, first as a silent partner, then as a decision maker, then as the boss. And the scariest part? Tommy knows this. He just thinks he's smart enough to survive it. Is that confidence or denial? Meanwhile, Cooper is stepping into leadership with something to prove and everything to lose. A murder charge still hanging in the air, a company resting on his shoulders, and now cartel eyes tracking his every move. One reckless decision, one hot-headed confrontation, and Galino doesn't punish Tommy, he punishes the son. That's how this works. And TL, with all his old school wisdom, sees it coming. He has lived long enough to know when a deal smells wrong. But wisdom doesn't always stop momentum, especially when desperation is driving the truck. This isn't just about oil anymore, it's about leverage, about fear, about how fast independence turns into captivity. Tommy wanted out from under corporate control, but what he got instead is something far worse. A partner who doesn't need contracts because blood enforces loyalty better than ink ever could. And the question nobody wants to ask yet is the most dangerous one of all. When Galino finally decides Tommy is more useful broken than alive, what exactly will he take first? At first, the money feels like oxygen. That's the trick. $44 million doesn't just keep CTT alive, it makes the impossible suddenly possible. Rigs move faster, leases open up, people start returning Tommy's calls again. For a brief moment, it almost feels like he won. Like he outsmarted the system, walked away from MTEX, and still landed on his feet. But cartel money never shows up empty-handed. It shows up smiling, and then it starts asking questions. Quiet ones, casual ones, the kind that sound harmless until you realize they're not questions at all. They're instructions. Suddenly Galino wants updates, not reports, not spreadsheets, updates. Who's drilling where? Which landowners are hesitating? Which regulators are slowing permits? Nothing illegal on the surface, but everything invasive. And every time Tommy hesitates, that smile returns. That calm reminder that this isn't a partnership of equals. Galino didn't buy into CTT for profit alone. He bought access, influence, a clean American oil company he can stand behind while his hands stay spotless. Or at least cleaner than usual, and once that door is open, it never closes again. The pressure bleeds into every conversation, every family dinner, Every meeting in those cramped trailers baking under the Texas sun, Cooper feels at first he's young, ambitious, and desperate to prove he deserves the title of president. He wants to drill faster, push harder, show results, and Galino loves that. Impatience is easy to manipulate. One whisper about accelerating production, one suggestion about skipping a safety step, and suddenly the line between smart risk and fatal mistake gets blurry. Cooper doesn't see the trap yet, he sees opportunity. That might be the most dangerous part. TL sees it clearly. He's seen men sell pieces of themselves for survival before. He knows how these stories end, not with retirement or redemption, but with funerals and regrets. He warns Tommy, not loudly, not dramatically, but with that quiet disappointment that cuts deeper than anger. He tells him this isn't oil business anymore, this is organized crime wearing a clean hat. But Tommy brushes it off. He always does. He believes he can manage the danger, keep it contained, control the narrative, because admitting he can't would mean admitting he made the worst deal of his life. And then the requests stop being subtle. Galino's people start appearing near the rigs, not threatening, just present, watching, asking questions they already know the answers to. A delay here, a reroute there, a lease that suddenly must be prioritized, and nobody says no, because nobody wants to test what happens when you do. The crew feels it, the tension, the fear. Productivity goes up, but morale drops. Everyone knows something is wrong, they just don't know how wrong yet. Angela feels it too. She's been around Tommy long enough to recognize when he's carrying a weight he won't talk about. He's quieter, sharper, more guarded. The man who used to fix problems now seems like he's constantly reacting to them. And that scares her, because when Tommy Norris stops planning ahead, people get hurt, family gets hurt. Galino understands that emotional pressure better than anyone. He knows leverage isn't just money, it's people, memories, attachments, and the more Tommy tries to shield his family, the more exposed they become. What makes it worse is that success only deepens the hole. Every profitable well proves Galino was right to invest. Every win strengthens his claim. Tommy realizes too late that failure might actually be safer than success. But failure isn't an option when lives are riding on payrolls and promises. He's trapped between keeping the company alive and keeping his family safe, and Galino sits comfortably in the middle, watching both sides bleed. This is the moment Landman Season 3 truly locks in its tone. Not explosions yet, not shootouts. Just the slow, suffocating realization that the cartel doesn't need violence to win, they just need time. And as Tommy looks around at everything he's built with CTT, one question starts to haunt him louder than any threat. How do you escape a deal where the more you succeed, the more you belong to the devil? Here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Cartels don't care about oil, they care about control. Oil is just the vehicle. And the moment Galino tied his money to CTT, the Norris family became Collateral. Not officially, not on paper, but in every way that matters. Tommy knows it, he feels it every time his phone buzzes late at night. Every time a black SUV slows down a little too long near a rig. Every time Galino casually mentions family in a sentence where family doesn't belong. That's not small talk, that's a reminder. Cooper's the easiest pressure point. Young, proud, still trying to outrun the shadow of that murder charge. He wants respect, not protection. He wants to prove he's not just Tommy's son, not just a lucky promotion, and Galino sees that hunger like blood in the water. All it takes is a little encouragement, a nod, a comment about leadership. Suddenly Cooper's making calls faster than he should, pushing crews harder, showing up to sites alone when he shouldn't. He thinks he's asserting authority. What he's really doing is exposing himself. And if Galino ever needs to send a message, Cooper is standing right in the crosshairs. TL watches this unfold with a kind of quiet dread. He's lived long enough to recognize patterns. This isn't business pressure, this is the slow tightening of a vice. He tries to pull Cooper back, remind him that survival isn't about speed, it's about patience. But Cooper hears caution as weakness. And Tommy is stuck in the middle, torn between trusting his son and protecting him from a danger he helped invite. That guilt eats at him, because no matter how he justifies the deal, deep down he knows this was his choice, and his family is paying for it. Angela becomes the emotional fault line. She's not involved in the oil operations, which makes her even more vulnerable. She sees the stress, the late nights, the short temper. She senses something darker circling, something Tommy refuses to name, and Galino knows exactly who she is. Not as a threat, not as a business asset, but as leverage. the kind you don't use right away, the kind you let sit heavy and implied until the moment comes when obedience needs reinforcement. Tommy knows that too. That's why every normal moment feels fragile now. Every laugh feels temporary. Every quiet dinner feels like it's being watched. And then there's Annesley, the daughter caught between worlds, not fully in the business, not fully protected from it either. Galino doesn't need to touch her to make his point. He just needs Tommy to imagine what could happen. That's the brilliance of terror like this. It operates in the imagination. It turns love into liability. And Tommy, for all his toughness, has always been driven by family. That's his strength, and now it's his weakness. The pressure fractures the Norris household in subtle ways. Arguments flare up faster. Trust erodes. Cooper starts questioning Tommy's judgment. TL questions Tommy's pride. Angela questions how much she really knows the man she loves. And through it all, Galino remains distant, polite, almost courteous. He doesn't need to threaten anymore. The threat is already doing its job. The family is unraveling from the inside exactly the way power likes it. What makes this spiral terrifying is how ordinary it looks from the outside. CTT is drilling, profits are coming in, the company appears successful even, but underneath that surface, every relationship is under strain. Every bond is being tested. And the truth Tommy refuses to face is this. Once a cartel embeds itself into your life, it doesn't just own your business, it owns your future, your decisions, your fear. The real question season 3 keeps circling isn't whether Tommy can outsmart Galino, it's whether he's already lost without realizing it. Because when protecting your family means obeying a man who sees them as leverage, how long before protection turns into sacrifice? Tommy keeps telling himself he's still driving this thing, that Galino may be riding shotgun, but the wheel is firmly in his hands. It's a comforting lie, the kind a man repeats until it almost sounds true. On paper, CTT is still a family company. The leases are in their name, the rigs answer to them, the decisions technically go through Tommy. But control isn't about paperwork, it's about who everyone is afraid of disappointing. And more, that isn't Tommy Norris, it's Danny Galino. It starts small, a call asking why a certain lease wasn't prioritized, a suggestion to move a rig sooner than planned. Nothing that screams cartel takeover, just gentle pressure wrapped in politeness. Tommy pushes back once, carefully, casually. Galino listens, nods, smiles, and then reminds him how fast $44 million can turn into a problem if expectations aren't met. No yelling, no threats, just reality stated out loud. That's when Tommy realizes something chilling. Galino doesn't need to force compliance, he already has it. Fear has done the work for him. Inside CTT, the atmosphere shifts. Meetings feel heavier, people speak less freely, every decision feels like it's being evaluated by someone who isn't in the room. Rebecca notices it. She's sharp enough to read between the lines to see when influence is coming from somewhere off the books. She doesn't say it outright, but the questions in her eyes say enough. Who are we really answering to now? And more importantly, how long before that answer puts them all in danger? Cooper, meanwhile, starts feeling boxed in. The authority he fought so hard for suddenly feels conditional. He's president, sure, but president with an invisible supervisor. He hates that. Hates the feeling of being watched, hates the idea that his success might not be his own. That resentment builds, simmering under every decision he makes, and resentment is reckless. It makes people bold at the worst possible moments. Cooper wants to prove he's not scared, that he's not under anyone's thumb, and Galino can sense that defiance growing like a fuse burning down. TL tries to slow everything down. He pushes for caution, for patience, for remembering that oil has always been a long game. But his voice starts carrying less weight, not because he's wrong, but because urgency is louder than wisdom. Bills are due, expectations are rising, and Galino's patience, though calm, feels limited. Every day without conflict feels borrowed. Every smooth operation feels like it's setting the stage for something violent to interrupt it. Tommy feels the pressure from all sides, family pulling him one way, business pulling him another, and Galino quietly tightening the space between those two worlds. He starts making compromises he swore he wouldn't, just this once, just to keep things smooth, just to buy more time. But time doesn't belong to him anymore. It belongs to the man who funded his survival. And with every compromise, Tommy feels a little more like an employee than an owner. The most dangerous part is that nothing has gone wrong yet. No blood, no explosions, no open threats, just the creeping realization that Galino is already shaping outcomes without ever issuing commands. That's real power. The kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that waits until resistance feels pointless. And Tommy is starting to understand that when violence finally comes, it won't be the beginning of the conflict. It'll be the end of a process that's already well underway. The illusion of control is a fragile thing. It cracks quietly, it slips away piece by piece until one day you look up and realize you're no longer choosing your moves. You're just reacting to someone else's game. And as Tommy stares out at the rigs pumping oil from land that no longer feels like his, one terrifying question takes shape in his mind. When Galino finally stops asking and starts demanding, will Tommy have anything left to say no with?